Fireside Tales. Hello, I'm Merlin, Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where I tell weird tales within tales. And I drink coffee. I drink coffee from my skull mug because I'm a deadhead. Do you guys know what a deadhead is? A deadhead is someone who really likes the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead is a psychedelic 60s rock band that has made its way into the 21st century as Dead and Company. At least the rest of the members have. The surviving members, I guess you could say. Except Billy Kreutzmann, who has a new band. He was in Dead and Company, and then he decided he was too old for that, so now he started this new band that's really awesome. Mahalo Dead. They have a really amazing female singer. I forget her name, but she's really good. So, every week here at Fireside Tales, we talk about the Grateful Dead, and I tell the story of the Grateful Dead, which is where the Grateful Dead got their name. The band got their name from a story. It's an old story that was in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and my animals are all running amok. My kitties and my dog, very active for some reason right now. Anywho, so here at Fireside Tales every week, we also discuss reincarnation. That's sort of the main objective of this show, is to discuss reincarnation and help people to understand reincarnation. And I really am not sure people understand reincarnation. Every week I've been discussing my book in the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is an ancient metaphysical library where every soul has a book, and each book records that soul's lives, when they were, who they were, and when said when, who, and where they were. Excuse me. So, the Akashic Records is a meditative place. You can only get there through meditation, unless you're a spirit. It's on the spiritual plane. It seems, yeah, it's definitely on the spiritual plane. So, my book has these threads that link each life to the next. And fire is one of those threads. Fire safety is also very important and also a thread. When we lived by fire back in the day, fire safety was even more important than it is today. And I live in California. Excuse me, where fire safety is extremely important. So imagine, though, needing fire to survive and also needing to keep it safe, and not burn down your house or your village. So fire safety was of the utmost importance. Meditating, which is how I get to the Akashic Records, is also one of my threads. I've been meditating throughout all of my lives. And before I meditate, I have always, throughout all of my lives, I don't recall a life in which I didn't do this. But before I meditate, also before I do a reading, I read tarot and runes. So before I do a reading, I like to do this also. And before I do ritual, this is a smudge stick. What I do is smudge. This is dried sage, and it cleanses your aura when you burn it, and use the smoke to cleanse your aura. You burn it kind of like an incense. It's taking a minute here. It doesn't want to light. It's raining here today, so the fire is useful for drying things out, but not the smudge stick. No, it's good enough for our purposes. You take it and you just kind of use the smoke to cleanse your aura. Then you want to make sure it goes out. Once those puppies get lit, they can be a little hazardous. You have to be careful not to let any sparks catch anything on fire. But then also I ground before I meditate and do readings or rituals. So grounding is like a cleansing mechanism for your insides. It's the smudging is to cleanse away negative energy from your aura. And then the grounding is to cleanse away negative energy from your insides. And it's a breathing exercise. So you want to breathe out all of the negative energy. Then you want to breathe in and think an uber positive thought. And breathe out. So you're breathing out positive and breathing in positive energy. So another one of my threads is reincarnation. And yet another one is being a psychic medium. I've been a psychic medium in every life in my book. Whether I understood it or not, I was. So I spend a lot of time in the spirit realm in this life. And the spirits have thoughts on reincarnation. And what the spirits say about reincarnation is the spirits say meow. No, the spirits say that people who are reincarnated have also been murdered. So my book in the Akashic Records is really big and really old and really dusty. And according to the spirits, that means that I've been murdered a lot. So I said that I would tell you the story of the Grateful Dead. This is a story that's in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is written in Sanskrit. And I don't read Sanskrit. So this story was told to me by a deadhead, by a fire. Only that deadhead could read Sanskrit. And had actually read the story and then was reciting it back to us by the fire. Excuse me. Here we go. Once, long, long ago, there was a traveler. It was so long ago that she traveled by foot. And one day, she happened upon a village. As she got closer to the village, she looked and realized there was a crowd gathered in the village. As she got closer still, she found that the crowd was arguing. As she got closer still, she found that the crowd was arguing quite literally over a dead body. There was a dead man laying on the ground, and these people were arguing right over him. They were arguing about who was going to pay his debts. They were arguing about who was going to bury him and who was going to pay for that. And the traveler just thought all of this was really gross. So the traveler stopped all the village's people that were gathered there arguing, and she said, I will pay the dead man's debts. I will pay for a proper burial. You need only bury him. And they did, and she did, and she prayed over his grave, and she traveled on. Then one day, decades later, the traveler from the beginning of the story happens upon a life or death situation in which a stranger just comes out of nowhere and gaffles her up and saves her life. The traveler's like, thank you. Who are you? Where did you come from? Why did you save my life? And the stranger simply says, I am the Grateful Dead. It's a story about reincarnation. The dead man reincarnated into a tiny baby body, and he grew up and still remembered the kind deed that the traveler had made. And then he ran into her again and wanted to repay the favor. And so he did. Just realized that I forgot to put my signs up, and I'm going to do that. Just in case. Have to put signs in my doors so that we don't get interrupted. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. So some people think it's a corpse that saves the traveler's life at the end. Some people think it's a zombie. It's neither, because neither corpses nor zombies save lives. So, it's a story about reincarnation. I also tell the story of the Grateful Dead and talk about being a deadhead because I have a reincarnation connection to the Grateful Dead in my book, in the Akashic Records. If you want to know what that connection is exactly, watch our very first show in our very first season. And I think that's the only place I actually tell you. Our last season will be all about that life. So, my book in the Akashic Records is very big and old and dusty, but it also has a watermark, which is strange, but I think it marks the Great Flood. Everything at the beginning of the book is light and dry and sandy, and I have much longer lives. And then everything at the back of the book is dark and wet and muddy, and I have much shorter lives. Like barely making it out of my 30s short. And long, the lives that are long are strangely long, like thousands of years long. With maybe the exception of this one, because I think she was murdered. This season, we've been discussing Hatshepsut in ancient Egypt, who is in my book in the light, dry, sandy part. She, despite being in the light, dry, sandy part, may not have had that long of a life, but it was at least like 100 years or so. So, that's pretty long. So, light is something I want to discuss today. It's one of my threads, but it's definitely something the ancient Egyptians knew more about than we know about light. They used the sunlight, the desert sunlight. Honestly, I think it was for power. I think the pyramids were not tombs. Certainly, they weren't ever tombs. They were power plants, essentially. And now they've just found these big cylinders underneath. Honestly, I don't know how people don't know this. I just have known in my soul that there's another pyramid basically underneath each pyramid. It's a diamond more than it's a pyramid. It's just half of it's in the ground, buried. And the Sphinx had a lion's head on it, and it was looking up at the stars. And the stars are also one of my threads. And I spoke last week about astral projection and how Hatshepsut and her family used astral projection in meditation, but they used the pyramids as like a anchor, so to speak. When they'd astral project around, they'd tether themselves metaphysically to the pyramids, and then they couldn't get too far out of their realm so that they couldn't come back to their body. But light is what we're discussing today. And they somehow used the sun. The pyramids were covered with white stone once. They are no longer covered with this bright white stone that used to cover them. And the very tips were covered with gold or electrum, which is a combination of silver and gold. Even the obelisks that Hatshepsut had put up, one of which still stands today, it was covered at the point with electrum. And this allowed them to use the sun with water, they also used the flooding of the Nile to their advantages. More than one advantage, because they used the water to help create electricity, but they also used the water to irrigate all the crops. So instead of being flooded out and everybody panicking, they just didn't build houses unless they were like the pyramids and they could take water through them. They didn't build houses in the flood zone. They put the crops in the flood zone, which is really smart. I mean, especially, this is 1500 BC. They were really advanced peoples. And I think the Great Flood just wiped out so much of their information and so many of their libraries. And so we just don't have anything that isn't carved into stone. But they had books. They had paper, papyrus. But those are all gone now. And I think it's because of the Great Flood. So they used light to create energy. And I discussed in our other episodes this season that Hatshepsut was Pharaoh. But she wasn't born Pharaoh. She was born the daughter of a Pharaoh. And her father, the Pharaoh, had priest kings beneath him. They were like the local kings and priests. And some of them were both in one person, a priest king. So obviously this was before the separation of church and state. This is before church. So the priest kings taught Hatshepsut and her father magic. With really, I can only describe as magic. And they used light with that magic. But they also used sound. I believe the first languages humans uttered were songs. They were singing languages, like birds. And then after, years and years, we stopped singing. But we haven't stopped singing. We still sing. It's just, I think people didn't really speak at all at first. I think they just sang. So the ancient Egyptians I think they were singing all the time. And there's something to music and humming and working with stones. Now, stones are also a thread of mine. And the fire safety, I forgot to discuss fire safety. I have water in the kettle on top of the stove here. I have this water here in the cup. I have water around the corner in my sprayer in the kitchen. And then if you build a fire outside, you want to be careful that there's no overhanging branches. And then you want to dig a pit, and you want to line that pit with stones, and then you want to line that with stones, so that you don't catch any grasses or anything on fire. And you don't want to catch any trees either. So it's my little fire safety disclaimer that I forgot to add. Getting things all over the place today. I started a little late so as to avoid my daughter coming home for lunch from school. So today I'm going to discuss Hatshepsut's childhood. She grew up in the palace. And I've discussed before that when she was a child, they kept lions all over the place. Like dogs, but more. But they would scritch them on the head and the ears and the belly, and they named them, and they were part of the family, and they protected the royal family. They protected the treasures. They protected the architecture, pyramids, the Sphinx, the caves beneath. They protected all of it. And they lived primarily in those caves that they're just finding now. That run from the Sphinx to the pyramids. Those were all the lion's dens. That's what was down there when Hatshepsut was alive, anyway. When she was a child. Because when she was a child, and her father was still Pharaoh, they went to bed one night. The lions were all alive. And when they woke up in the morning, someone had poisoned all of them and killed all of the lions. And that was really a deep wound for Hatshepsut. She really loved those lions, and so did her father. So that was something from her childhood that was really disturbing to her. But the priest kings still continued to teach her, and they taught her to read and write, and they taught her magic, like I said. I was visited in this life by the priest kings. I was doing some work outside with stones, and I really, really hurt myself. So when I went to go work with stones after I got better from hurting myself once moving stones, the priest kings came to me, and they told me to try humming when I lift the stone. And they said, you could hum anything. So I picked a little tune, and I tried it, and you can try this at home if you have stones. You go out and find a stone that's kind of heavier than, heavier than not, and kind of hard to lift. Try lifting it without humming. Then try lifting it while humming and see the difference. It's amazing. It's so much easier if you hum. Especially limestone, which we have a lot of here in Northern California by the mountain. And it's super easy to lift if you're humming. Like all those pores somehow, I think, can take in sound. Have you ever seen how sound makes sand go into patterns? Have you seen that? It's pretty awesome. And I think they used that technique to make, it's the desert, there's sand everywhere, to make all kinds of things out of the sand. So Hatshepsut was the Pharaoh's daughter, and being the Pharaoh's daughter was complicated. As a child, everywhere we went, we had quite an entourage. The Pharaoh, the priest kings, the queens, the concubines, the children, the lions, the servants, the cooks. It was crazy. Totally crazy. I do remember being able to be what I thought was alone, but probably wasn't, with my mother, out by the pyramids at night. Oh, how lovely the night sky is, or was, there with the Sphinx and the pyramids. Just spectacular. And that was where my mother taught me meditation and astral projection and interdimensional travel, all via meditation. Tethering yourself to the pyramids. My soul, actually, when I first started astral projecting in this life, that was one of the first places I went, was the pyramids. And I didn't know about this life at that time. I just was naturally drawn there, like I was still tethered to the pyramids. It was cool. We definitely use them as like a takeoff point, like a platform to take off and arrive at in soul form, spirit form, just astrally. So another thing I do here at Fireside Tales every week is I sing David Crosby's Deja Vu. Because it's one of the only songs I know that is about reincarnation. And like I said, we discuss reincarnation here at Fireside Tales. So, I did write a song called Reincarnation, about reincarnation, and I sang it on the show like once, maybe twice, and then David Crosby died. So, I've been singing it since as my little tribute to David Crosby. So, here we go. If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do. Don't you? If I had ever been here before on another time around the wheel, I would probably know just how to deal with all of you. And I feel like I've been here before. Like I've been here before, and you know, it makes me wonder what's going on. Under the ground. Do you know? Don't you wonder? What's going on down under you? La-da-da, 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 da, la-da-da-da, da. Do you know? Don't you wonder? What's going on down under you? La-da-da, la-da-da, la-da-da. La da 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 da. We have all been here before. 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 Well, that's about it for me today. Join us next week when we explore Hatshepsut's teen years and the ancient Egyptian culture. Thanks for watching. Have a weird and wonderful weekend. A Mililli Studios production.